y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle with Damn Fancy Creations and the Drunk Flamingo Glitter. If y'all are new to my channel, I do want to let you know that you can check out my content in two other places. I have a large tutorial group on Facebook, as well as a smaller, more personal Patreon group where I offer exclusive content, discount codes, free digital files, and fun group challenges each month. I'm going to drop that info in the description below in case you want to check out my other groups. For today's tutorial, this started a snowball effect of me making my own patterned designs, and I just really wanted it for this one cup, but it just kind of snowballed. So if you guys have seen the different digital patterns that I have been posting lately, it is all because of this cup. I wanted to start Valentine tumblers, and I came across this super cute image of this pony that I'm going to be using, but it was red and I wanted him pink. So I searched everywhere to see if I could find a pink pony version because I wanted to use pink glitter and not red glitter, and I could not find one. I had made patterns previously in Procreate, which is my digital drawing software I use if I'm going to create my own designs. So I figured I'm just going to try to make my own pattern and see if I can change the colors. And I did, and it looks super cute. I'm really happy with how this pattern turned out. So I had to get it on a cup ASAP. So for this tutorial, we're going to be using the pattern that I created that is also up for sale on thedrunkflamingo.com. We're going to be using a half sheet of waterslide to apply this design, and then we're going to do a fun ombre on the other side with epoxy, and then of course we're going to finish it with a fun vinyl Valentine phrase. So this is just a super cute vintage Valentine cup that I love how it turned out. So if you guys are ready to see how I created this fun tumbler, let's get started. Alright y'all, so to start off we're going to need a tumbler prepped and spray painted with a flat white spray paint. I use Rustoleum 2 times in flat white. And then we're going to tape off our sections. I like to use regular blue painter's tape. And I don't measure, I just eyeball this. If you guys want to measure, you definitely can do that, but I am not, you know, super picky on being exactly half and half. Sometimes I want one section a little bit bigger than the other section, if I'm doing a design or pattern or something like that. Typically, I will just divide the bottom in half just like this, and then press down each side. And the good thing with painter's tape is you can lift it up, place it back down, as long as your spray paint is dry. And I'm not pressing down super hard. I just want to make sure that my tape is flush with the tumbler so no spray paint can get underneath the tape. And so my other side does not get pink spray paint on it. I am just covering the bottom totally with the tape. And I am just going to tape a piece of paper to the opposite side. This way, when I spray paint my pink paint onto the tumbler, the pink will not get on the side that I want to remain white. And there we go. So now we have a little shield for the opposite side. So I'm going to take fluorescent Krylon pink, and I am going to ombre pink to white. I just opened my upstairs window and spray painted this. If you guys want to see how I spray paint ombre or gradient colors together, I will link a video now. I do have several videos on my channel showing how I do that, so I did not film it this time. So here is what my pink looks like. I just spray painted the bottom and then just sprayed the pink upwards. And now we're going to remove our little shield. So when this paint is 100% dry, we can get our epoxy ready to apply to our tumbler and then glitter it. I am using Pink-a-colada and Prickly Pear Margarita, both from the Drunk Flamingo. One is a light pink and one is a bright pink. I'm going to use my tea strainer to apply my glitter. I picked this tea strainer up at Walmart years ago, but you can find similar ones on Amazon. I'm going to use my little measuring cups to apply the epoxy. I believe I mixed up 2.5 milliliters of part A and part B. I'm just going to use Fast to apply this. I just have 2 little containers of Fast up in my office. So what I did was pour part A up to 2.5 milliliters, and then I'm going to pour part B up to 5 milliliters. So that way I'm not wasting 2 cups trying to, scrape every little bit out of one cup into the other cup. This way, if I know one is 2.5 and then I fill up to 5, then part B must have been 2.5 as well. And when you're applying epoxy, you do need to wear gloves. Please do not apply it with your bare hands. Sometimes getting epoxy on us is unavoidable, but we should do everything we can to not get it on our skin purposely. I know that gloves can be hard to find sometimes. I actually get mine at Target for a pretty decent price. They have them in the first aid section and in the cleaning section. So I'm just mixing up my Fast. I don't mix for a certain amount of time. I just mix until there are no more striations in my epoxy. Make sure that you're scraping the sides, scraping your stir stick. So once that is mixed up, I'm going to take just a little bit and we're just going to wipe it all over the tumbler. And if you do a thin enough layer, you do not need to put this on your turner. And when I say thin, I mean you should be like fighting with the epoxy to spread it. This is how I glitter my walking canes. I do glitter epoxy walking canes, or say I should. I don't do them anymore. I cut a lot of stuff out from my business because I was just too busy. So y'all can see I am just barely putting like a drop of epoxy on at a time. And make sure that you get your edges well, because we do want those still to be glittered. We want everything to have epoxy on it, but just a little bit. As long as your cup is tacky with epoxy, then the glitter will stick. So then I will wipe everything from top to bottom just like I do normally. Make sure everything is smoothed out really well. Make sure everything has epoxy on it. And once everything is coated, we will be ready to apply our glitter. And I am using two colors of glitter, but because the hot pink is translucent, if I would have applied that on a white base, it would not appear as bright and vibrant as if it were on a hot pink base like we're doing now. So I'm basically just filling up my little, I always want to call it a thimble, but it's not a thimble, it's a tea strainer. It just looks like a thimble. And I'm just tapping this on the bottom of my cup, and then I'm going to get the bottom edges. And I did remove the painter's tape because since we only applied epoxy in between the painter's tape, then the glitter is not going to stick to anything other than what we epoxied. So I am basically just holding my tumbler straight while I apply this glitter until I get to the edges or the middle, and then I'm going to angle it so that this pink glitter or the hot pink glitter can kind of waterfall up the cup. So that way we get kind of like a gradient effect already happening. So then when we sprinkle the next glitter, that will just add to that ombre effect. And I'm just making sure my edges are covered, my rims. This is one of my favorite hot pinks to use, y'all. If you don't have it, you definitely should get it. It is Prickly Pear Margarita. So now we're going to bang off our tea strainer, pour the hot pink glitter back into the container. And now we're going to pour out some Pink-a-colada. This is a really pretty light pink glitter. It has a little bit of silvery undertones. And we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to sprinkle it right along the edge. And then we're going to angle our cup and let the glitter kind of waterfall down into the hot pink, which will help create that ombre effect. So I'm just pouring a little bit out along the edge. And trying to show this to you guys, trying to hold a cup so y'all can see it is a little bit more complicated. So y'all can see I'm just angling this cup and then sprinkling on the glitter. So it creates a nice ombre. I think these colors together are so pretty. So now we're going to dump this back in there. And then we can apply our epoxy to the opposite side of the tumbler. So instead of wasting a whole other glove, I just cut the finger out of one of the finger holes of the glove I just used. And we're just going to apply the epoxy this way. So I am just pouring a little bit on, just a little bit, and we're just spreading it all over the cup just like we did before. And the fast set was starting to get a little thick because it was setting for a little bit. So I'm just bringing this epoxy as close to the edge as I can. If I was using a little squeegee brush, I probably could have gotten it done a little bit better, but so you guys can see underneath the tape it did bleed just a little bit, but since we are going to go back and detail this with some vinyl lines, I wasn't too worried about it. And I did have a little bit glitter that got contaminated in this epoxy, but once I, you know, you kind of have to judge like what your tumbler is going to look like in the end. So I knew that I was applying a pattern over this and glitter, so you ended up not being able to see it after we epoxied this tumbler, so I wasn't too concerned with it. If you're just leaving, you know, if I was just going to leave this side blank, then I probably would have been a little bit more careful with that glitter, but I knew a tumbler, or I knew a glitter and a pattern was going on this side, so this just goes to show you guys that you can't sweat the small stuff. So once I got that epoxy on there, I am going to take Coconut Snowball Martini, which is now back in stock for those of you that are wanting some. And since this is just one color, I am just taking this glitter in a little cup and sprinkling it on the tumbler. So I still don't want it to overlap the pink because I don't know if some will stick to that side now that the epoxy has soaked up that glitter. So I am just sprinkling it right along the edge of where these two glitters are going to meet. And we're letting it kind of cascade down the tumbler. And then I'm going to turn the tumbler and do the same thing. So we're just sprinkling this glitter right up along the edge of where the two glitters are going to meet, and then let it cascade down the side. And then I'm just going and sprinkling some down the center of the tumbler. And then we're going to bang it off really good. And I'm just checking for any spots that I may have missed. And it is so sparkly. So now we're going to clean up the white glitter. And since I used epoxy and not a spray adhesive, I will go and make sure there are no spots that I need to touch up. Like right now, I'm applying a little bit more of the light pink glitter, maybe where the epoxy has soaked up a little too much, and we're just sprinkling some more on there. And once this epoxy cures, I will go and brush off all of the glitter and spray seal it if I need to. And then we will put it on the turner for another layer of epoxy. So here is our cup before epoxy. And we're just going to take a little bit and kind of smooth it on. You don't want to glob your epoxy on there, but you do want enough to cover the glitter. I am always very sparing with epoxy on the bottom of the tumbler because we don't want it to glob up and cause the tumbler to sit uneven. If you guys are interested in the tumbler next to this one, it's done with foils, and I will link that video now for you guys to check out. And after I smooth everything out, remove any globs of epoxy, I will take my CCDIY torch and pop the bubbles really well. And once this layer of epoxy cures, I will apply one more layer of epoxy just to make sure that all the glitter is covered and everything is smooth for our water slide and vinyl application. So now we are printing out our water slide. I just printed a half sheet and a few little ponies. I wasn't sure if I was going to use those or not. If you guys are interested in this pattern, I do have it up on thedrunkflamingo.com under the digital images section. So once I print this out, I will take it downstairs and I will seal it one really good time with Rustoleum 2x gloss. So once that sealer is dry, we will be ready to apply it to our tumbler. I went ahead and sanded around the rims, and I sanded the pink section if there were little glitter grains that you could be felt. I do not sand the white section because if you sand before a water slide application, you will see the sanding marks underneath your water slide, and that section of the tumbler will appear dull even under epoxy. If you have to sand, you need to reseal that area or spray that area with a gloss spray that can help diminish the sanding marks and gloss up the area. So I am just trimming off all of my edges. Since I sealed this, sometimes when you seal, then the edges will kind of seal together. So by cutting it, you break that seal and the water slide will slide off the backing easily. So I am just measuring how tall I need this. Making sure it fits my tumbler good, matches up on both sides. We are good to go. So I am just going to wet the backing of this slide. I do not submerge these in water. I don't put them in a bucket. I just wet the backing and it releases in about 30 seconds. I do use Sunnyscopia brand water slide. It's the best that I can find. It releases super easily. It only takes one coat of sealer to seal everything in. I don't have an issue with rips or tears as long as I don't handle it too much. So when applying water slide, you do want your tumbler to be wet as well. Obviously, you're not going to be able to saturate a tumbler, but having water underneath the slide when we start to apply it to our tumbler makes it a lot easier to maneuver and move around until you get it in the spot that you want it in. So I always have just a little glass of water nearby and a paper towel in case I need to re-wet something quickly. And when the slide starts to release from the backing, you know it's ready to apply to the tumbler. So I am just matching up the edges . And then I'm going to slowly pull the backing out from under the image. Super easy, y'all. So now that the image is on there, you can kind of maneuver it a little bit if you need to. I really didn't need to move anything around too much. But now that the slide is on the cup, we need to get all of that water out from underneath the image. So I will typically start from one end and just kind of squeeze all the water out of one end. That way, that end of the image is attached well to the tumbler and won't slide around when we're trying to get the water out from the other areas. And since this is a larger image or larger slide, we do need to concentrate on it a little bit more. I will kind of focus on one section at a time. And if you hold the tumbler just right in the light, you can kind of see if there is any water trapped up underneath the slide. And with water slides, I typically wait 30 to 45 minutes before I epoxy. You know, with this particular tumbler, I think I did wait a little longer just because I didn't need to put other cups on at the time. But you don't need to wait 48 hours. You just need to wait until it's dry.
And you can kind of feel, typically right after you get the water out from underneath a water slide, it kind of feels like gummy or kind of tacky a little bit. But once it's completely dry, it will feel a little more brittle, if that makes sense. So yes, I am still getting the water out from underneath the image. Larger images do take a little bit more time than something that's an inch or 2 inches in size. But I am pretty happy with how this looks. If you have any overlap like I do here, just a little bit, I can go and trim that off with my blade once the slide is dry. Don't try to do it when it's still wet. So I am going to add half a circle on the bottom. So I am just kind of marking where it needs to start. Just because I wanted part of the horse in there. So I'm going to flip my cup. And I am going to take a pen and just draw around the bottom half of that cup. And then we're going to cut that out. And then we're going to see if it matches up. This one was a little bit too tall. So you can kind of trim it down to size until you get it to match up how you want. That was pretty good. So I'm just going to wet the backing of this little piece. And Birdie is barking at some squirrels in the backyard and some kids playing. So once this backing releases, we can apply that to the bottom side. I'm still going to wet this area a little bit. And we're just going to slide on these little ponies. And for the next one that I did bring down the top water slide a little bit over the edge. That way there wasn't like a little gap between the bottom water slide and the top water slide, if that makes sense. But since this had a lot of blank or negative space, it really wasn't that noticeable. If it were a colored image, it would have been more noticeable. So we're just getting all of the water out from underneath this slide. And now the water slide section is complete. I love these little ponies, y'all. So while this water slide is drying, I am going to go and cut out my vinyl decals. So I decided to use hot pink, white, and some holographic pink, holographic rose gold for my decals. I thought that they really went with the pony water slide and the theme of Valentine. So now that the water slide is dry, we're ready to apply our decals. I have some thin pink and white lines. I believe I made them 0.07 and 0.03. That's typically the sizes that I use for pinstripes. And now that this water slide is dry, I am just scoring the dry water slide and peeling away any of that overlap. So now with the white pinstripe, we're just going to match it up right along that water slide glitter line. And I will just typically print these in 12-inch strips. And I usually print a group at a time. That way I have lines for the next group of cups that I'm going to be doing. And this image was just something that I designed in Silhouette. So for the hot pink pinstripes, I am just applying it right in the center of the white pinstripes. I am just carefully going around or along and pressing it down. You can lift it up and adjust it if you need to. And this is sped up just a little bit, so I am going a little bit slower than what the video shows. And I am going to use some nail tape. I got this pack from Amazon. And I am just using this bronze color. I thought it went well with the pink and kind of added to the vintage feel of the ponies. And I'm just applying this a little out from the white pinstripe. I know it's kind of hard to see on the video because they're so close together, everything. And I just cut this with my blade and it cuts super easily. And now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. And I was pretty happy with these pinstripes. So I'm just smoothing everything out really well, making sure everything is pressed down nicely. And now we're ready to apply our decals. This hot pink vinyl is some of my favorite to use, but it's such a bright color that I don't get to use it as much as I would like to. I do get this from my local vinyl supplier, Perfect Press HTV, which was formerly JSI Signs. They're located in Norcross, Georgia. So if you guys are local to them, you should definitely stop in. It's like being a kid in a candy store with all this vinyl around you. So I am just going to carefully layer this with my head in the way, of course. I just try to match it up as best I can. For larger decals, I usually do it in sections, but this one was pretty easy to get in one shot. And for my offset, I typically make it 0.05. For those of you that are wondering. And I did cut this vinyl a little too deep, so the backing was sticking when I was trying to remove the decals, which is always super fun. And I probably could have used new transfer tape as well. So I am just going to line up my lines on my transfer tape with the top of the tumbler and kind of slide it down a little bit. My was not sticking well, so I did just take it off and apply it separately. These tweezers come in handy, guys. If y'all don't have them, you should definitely get them. So I thought this decal was super cute for this cup. And then I did have just some random little hearts and polka dots that I decided just to add on the tumbler. Just kind of at an angle from top to bottom. And that is pretty much it, y'all. So once this vinyl had a chance to sit, I put it on the turner for 2 more layers of epoxy, and then it was complete. And here are some finished pictures of the tumbler. I think it turned out super cute. I love how it's just little Valentine ponies and bright pink vinyl. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and maybe you won't be so intimidated by trying a large sheet of water slide. If y'all enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook or my Patreon group. Both are linked in the description. Thanks for watching.